Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Friday, the 24th of May, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about, so let's get going. Story number 1, it's quite a sell-off today on the S&P ASX 200, with the bourse closing down 84 points, or 1.1%, to 7,728 points. Every sector lost ground today. For the week, the market was down more than 1%. Retailers and the banks led the way lower, with all big 4 banks dropping. Commonwealth Bank was off 2%. Wesfarmers was sold off, down 3.8%. There wasn't much good news anywhere, really. The sector with the smallest decline today was the energy companies. In fact, both Woodside and Santos closed slightly higher. The selling today flowed from a very poor lead-in from Wall Street after readings on the US manufacturing and service sector came in stronger than expected. That caused the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq to finish lower on the back of speculation that interest rate cuts might be delayed. An exception, of course, was chipmaker Nvidia. Its share price soared 9% to just under $1,038 a share following the release of very strong revenue growth for the March quarter. In corporate news, shares in online labour hire company Appen jumped after management said it expects to break even this financial year. Story number 2, 2 years after he was elected and less than 1 year before the next poll, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has more or less kicked off his election campaign, using a speech today to call opposition leader Peter Dutton a carbon copy of Scott Morrison. He said it is, quote, too important to go back to fear and division, and said the nation faces challenges that are too urgent for a retreat to denial and delay. Mr. Albanese sharpened the government's shift from identity politics to a broad-based election pitch around tax cuts, energy bill relief, higher wages and stronger Medicare, according to The Australian. The pivot comes amid polling and focus groups showing that voters in outer suburban areas are becoming disillusioned with the government as cost of living pressures mount. On to story number 3 now, and one of Anglo American's biggest investors has welcomed the prospect of BHP securing a deal with Anglo's board, saying the suitor just needs to put something more on the table. David Heil, a portfolio manager at 91, a $240 billion asset manager with a 2% stake in Anglo, making it the 7th largest shareholder, says an agreed deal would be a good outcome, according to the Financial Review. BHP is now onto its 3rd offer, worth $73.9 billion, and has less than a week to convince Anglo's board and management of its deal. But Mr. Heil said the suitor would have to come back with something to soothe Anglo shareholders' anxiety about the risk in the bid structure. Mr. Heil said the risk came because BHP was essentially proposing a series of transactions, spinning off both the South African iron ore and platinum assets while merging the rest with BHP, which made the deal, quote, 3 times as difficult as a normal merger. Story number 4, the US Securities and Exchange Commission has paved the way for trading in exchange-traded funds that invest directly in the cryptocurrency Ether, putting the digital asset industry on the cusp of a significant milestone. The SEC signed off on a proposal by venues run by Cboe Global Markets, NASDAQ, and the New York Stock Exchange to list products tied to the world's second biggest cryptocurrency. The move, which had seemed unlikely as recently as last week, removes a key hurdle for spot Ether ETF trading in the US. Issuers now need a separate sign-off from the regulator, according to Reuters. Investment companies including Van Eck, BlackRock, and Fidelity Investments are all vying for crucial first mover advantage in the race to launch a spot Ether ETF. Their interest has, of course, been piqued by billions of dollars flowing into new Bitcoin ETFs since January, when the SEC signed off on trading in those products. Ether's price has surged in recent weeks as rumors of an SEC ruling spread. And finally, story number 5, hundreds of students walked out of Harvard University's commencement ceremony overnight in protest at the governing board's decision to withhold degrees for those who participated in a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus. Students in graduation robes chanted "Free, Free Palestine" as they walked out, and others shouted let them walk," referring to allowing the 13 barred students to get their diplomas along with fellow graduates. It occurred on a day when more than 9,000 graduates and their families were gathered in Harvard Yard for celebration and reflection. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 24th of May, 2024. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Join us tomorrow morning for the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson. Enjoy your evening.